Imagine this. You're just a regular high school student trying to get through your day, but your excessively strict teacher mistakes your much-needed medicine for snacks and confiscates them. Here's how it all went down. It was a typical Monday morning and I was already dreading the day ahead. My alarm clock blared at 6 a.m., pulling me out of the comfort of my dreams and into the harsh reality of another school day. The only thing that made mornings slightly bearable was my routine of taking my prescribed medication, which, due to its peculiar packaging, looked a bit like those snack packs you'd find in a convenience store. Dragging myself out of bed, I got ready, grabbed my meds, and shoved them into my backpack, not thinking much of it. Little did I know this seemingly insignificant action would lead to one of the most absurd confrontations of my high school career. All thanks to my first period teacher, Karen. Karen had a reputation for being the most annoying and stubborn teacher in the entire school. She had rules, a lot of them, and one that she was particularly strict about was no snacks in my class. It didn't matter if you were discreetly sipping water or just chewing on a piece of gum. If Karen caught you, you'd wish you hadn't. Halfway through her lecture on the importance of Shakespeare in modern literature, I felt the familiar, unsettling churn in my stomach, a gentle reminder from my body that it was time for my medication. Without thinking, I reached into my bag, pulled out my meds, and was about to pop one into my mouth when Karen's eagle eyes spotted me. "No snacks in my class!" she bellowed, striding over with a speed I didn't know she possessed. Before I could even react, she had snatched the packet from my hands. "These are my meds," I tried to explain, the shock making my voice waver slightly. "I won't tolerate lying in my class, young man. You can collect your snacks after school," she retorted, placing my medication on her desk, a fortress I knew I couldn't breach without causing a scene. The rest of the class passed in a blur. I could barely focus, not just because of the discomfort but also due to the burning indignation I felt. As soon as the bell rang, signaling the end of the period, I approached Karen, hoping to resolve the misunderstanding calmly. "Miss Karen, those really are my medications. I need them for my health," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the frustration bubbling inside me. Karen, however, was unmoved. "I've heard enough excuses. You're not getting your snacks back until the end of the day. This will teach you a lesson about following rules," she replied, her tone dripping with condescension. "But you don't understand," I started, only to be cut off. "I understand perfectly. Now off to your next class. Don't waste my time." She dismissed me with a wave of her hand, turning back to her desk as if the matter was settled. The day dragged on, each class a torment not just because of my untreated condition, but also due to the whispers and snickers from classmates who had witnessed the exchange. Word had gotten out, as it always does in high school, and by lunchtime everyone seemed to know about my snack debacle with Karen. Feeling both humiliated and physically uncomfortable, I couldn't focus on anything. It wasn't just about the medication anymore. It was about the injustice of being punished for something I hadn't done, of being misunderstood and not given a chance to explain. Finally, the school day ended, and I made my way to Karen's classroom. My resolve hardened. I was ready to argue, to fight for my right to my medication. But when I arrived, I found the room empty. On her desk, where my meds had been, there was nothing but a note. "Think about your actions." It was then I realized Karen had left for the day, taking my medication with her. The feeling of helplessness was overwhelming. Not only had she confiscated something crucial for my well-being, but she had also dismissed my needs entirely, leaving me to suffer the consequences of her ignorance and stubbornness. The ride home was a blur of anger and discomfort. I knew this was far from over. I needed my medication back, and Karen needed to understand the gravity of her mistake. But for now, all I could do was plan my next steps and brace myself for the confrontation that was sure to come. As I lay in bed that night, the events of the day replaying in my mind, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of injustice. How many others had suffered because of Karen's stubbornness? How could someone in a position of authority be so indifferent to the needs of those they were supposed to help and educate? The incident with Karen didn't just provoke anger. It sparked a determination within me. A determination to stand up not just for myself but for anyone who had ever been wronged by someone who refused to listen, to understand. Karen might have thought she was teaching me a lesson, but in reality, she was the one who had much to learn. This story is a stark reminder of the importance of empathy, understanding, and communication in any setting, especially in schools where young minds are shaped. It underscores the need for people in positions of authority to truly listen, rather than making hasty judgments based on their preconceived notions. The experience with Karen, though distressing, also highlights the resilience of the human spirit and the determination to fight for justice, even when faced with adversity. It's a powerful lesson in standing up for oneself and others, and in never allowing anyone to dismiss our valid needs and concerns. I'm a 25-year-old bride-to-be with a family dilemma that's turning my wedding plans upside down. My cousin, known for her unpredictable behavior, wasn't on my guest list, but family pressures have forced me to reconsider. As the drama surrounding my decision escalates, I can't help but wonder, am I the asshole for not wanting to invite my mentally unstable cousin to my wedding? Here's how it all went down. I, 25-year-old female, am planning to get married this coming spring. I have a cousin named Rose, also a 25-year-old female, who was around a lot as we were growing up. Her mother, my aunt, is my mother's sister, and they've always been very close. My mom adores Rose and her siblings for some reason, and we spent a lot of holidays and summers together when we were young. The issue is, Rose is unpredictable. Her brothers are fine, but Rose is unpredictable. Every time we were together, she would have a meltdown and throw a tantrum if things didn't go her way, and it never made any sense. Example, she would throw fits if we went to the beach, but also if she didn't go to the beach. She even broke some of my stuff. She just seems like a very unstable girl. We stopped spending so much time together when Rose's dad got a job in a different state and they moved away and couldn't afford to fly back as frequently. It's been a while, and I still follow her on social media. She posts a lot about mental health stuff. She goes by a new name, has a new look, and she's even dating some guy. But I don't think it's authentic. I think she's trying to reinvent herself because she used to be such a brat and is trying to make people forget how she used to treat them. I'm pretty sure she has BPD. This Christmas was at my mom's house, and my fiancé and I figured that we would hand out the wedding invites there and not risk them getting lost in the mail. Most people at Christmas received one, but Rose naturally wasn't invited. I don't want her ruining our special day or anything. She was pretty mellow and was talking about her new job and stuff. She came up and told me that she noticed that her brothers had received an invite, but I had forgotten to give her one. I told her I didn't think she would want to come, since when we used to get together, nothing seemed right for her. She seemed really taken aback, apologized for how she used to act because she had a lot of stuff to deal with, and said she was sorry that I didn't think she couldn't change from when she was a kid. I held firm because this is the first time she's ever apologized to me for how she tried to ruin stuff, and I think she was just trying to manipulate me into getting her way like she always used to. Her family realized that she had never received an invite, and one of her brothers called and asked why his sister wasn't invited. I restated that I didn't feel comfortable with a mentally unstable woman at my wedding, and he got angry and said that I was naive for being mad at something that happened so long ago, and that I was being ridiculous and prejudiced, and said he didn't want to come either, and hung up. Then Rose's mom called my mom and said that if her daughter was the only family member not invited, that she wasn't going to attend. Now my mom is upset that her sister and nieces and nephews, her word, aren't coming, and pleaded with me to just invite Rose. But you can't fully cure mental illness, and I don't want her coming and smashing my cake or something. Am I the jerk? It's a long story, but there has been some drama about me not inviting my cousin, also 25F, that spiraled into family drama, and now her parents and brothers are threatening to pull out if I don't invite her. I don't want my cousin there because she is mentally ill, I believe BPD, and I have had very bad experiences with her when we grew up together, and I don't believe she has truly improved the way she acts like she has. I feel like she could be a potential threat to my wedding, and I don't want all the attention to be on her having a breakdown, or her trying to ruin my cake or interrupt my vows. But my mother, who is very close with her mother and her, is also threatening to pull funding because I'm acting ridiculous for not inviting all of her nibblings. It's causing so much drama, and with my aunt and my mother deciding to take back the offer of money, I wouldn't be able to fully pay for the venue we already have booked. The invites were given out about a month ago, and I'm surprised and disappointed that the drama hasn't blown over since then. I got advice on Reddit before that suggested extra security to shadow my cousin specifically. It looked like that was the only way to keep this venue, so I brought it up with my fiancé and he said he was fine with hiring someone, or even having one of his relatives shadow her the entire time and make sure she didn't try anything. So I mentioned it to my mother, but she didn't like the idea. She says my cousin isn't a threat, and I'm being awful towards her. I tried to explain that, rationally, it was the best option. My cousin is a mentally ill woman, and I doubt the venue would appreciate us inviting someone with a known history of destruction and meltdowns. This way, she can have her nieces and nephews and sister at the wedding, and I can have slightly more peace of mind. I'm trying to maintain this boundary, but my mom still insists that I'm being awful for some reason. I'm just trying to maintain the peace while feeling safe at my own wedding. Am I the jerk? This post has garnered a lot of attention. Please refrain from speculating about my cousin's sexuality without basis and suggesting that I'm a bad person because of it. Contrary to what some may imply, my mother is not completely financing my wedding. Although she is contributing a significant amount, it was her offer, not my request. If I had known that her financial support came with conditions, I would have opted for a more affordable venue initially. Withdrawing now would result in losing my deposit, which I paid for, and necessitate substantial rescheduling and replanning. I refuse to let anyone ruin my fiancé's and my special day. To those recommending I go low or no contact with my mother, that isn't an option. I love her and she loves me, and I'm not going to destroy our relationship because of some person. I stopped replying to my "Am I the jerk?" post because it was clear that it was being invaded, and people even linked the subreddit that was invading. I keep getting harassing messages on my other post and through private messages, which makes me realize that people are stalking my profile as well. People are making assumptions about me and my feelings towards the LGBTQ community and transgender issues that are irrelevant to my post about my cousin. My cousin is female and mentally ill. My cousin is not a man and has never told me that she considers herself to be a man. I believe that a woman is allowed to want to feel safe and secure at her own wedding without derogatory slurs being thrown at her and being forced to accommodate mental illness at a celebration that is not for the mentally ill woman. I am not going to elope, and I am not going to cancel. I know my mother loves me, even if she also likes my cousins and would not abandon me. My fiancé stands by me no matter what and agrees with my stance on the whole thing. I appreciate all the actual advice I've received. My cousin will be invited to placate my mother, and I've told her that I will invite her and not hire security. My fiancé's cousin will shadow her the entire time if she makes it into the venue. She will not be allowed to bring a +1 and invite her boyfriend/girlfriend. If she does not stick to the dress code, she will not be allowed in. The dress code is simple and already established. A formal or semi-formal dress for female guests, and a suit for male guests, all within my wedding colors. It's pretty standard for weddings, so if she can't manage that, then oh well, I can tell my mother I tried to accommodate her. This story presents a complex and emotionally charged situation. The bride-to-be is wrestling with the decision of whether to invite her unpredictable cousin to her wedding. The cousin's past behavior has caused distress, and the fear of potential disruptions on the wedding day is causing further tension. Despite the cousin's apparent changes and apologies, the bride remains skeptical. This situation demonstrates the difficulties that can arise when planning a wedding, particularly when family dynamics and mental health issues are involved. I never wanted a divorce, and I suggested we could still live together, despite everything. After all, I had given a decade of my life to this relationship and our family, navigating the complexities of marriage, children, and a growing business. It seemed like an unusual solution, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Here's how it all went down. I, 30 years old, female, have been married to my husband, 35 years old male, for almost 7 years now. We started dating when I was 20 years old and he was 24. He entered the relationship with a 3-year-old daughter and a successful but relatively small business. Since then, we've added 2 more children and his business has expanded significantly. I assisted him in obtaining full custody of his daughter by managing all the paperwork and requirements for the lawyers. The lawyers team barely communicated with him. I was the main point of contact. I also handle the operations for the business. Don't get me wrong, he is a hard worker and a wonderful dad to our kids. He will always provide for them, no doubt, and be there for them. I am just saying that I have done my fair share of work in this relationship throughout the years. Our oldest is 13 and I am her mom. She barely has a relationship with her biological mother, and my kids are with me all day long, with our eldest being homeschooled. We recently went on a vacation with another family, and the trip quickly turned sour when I informed my husband that the other couple expressed their desire to do something different than what he had planned last minute for both parties. When we returned to our room, he called me strange for ambushing his plans when I told him, "I just think they didn't want to burst your bubble," or something like that. He quickly became angry and said I was trying to control the trip. The couple expressed to me they hadn't planned on leaving the resort and were glad I didn't want to go either. When we returned home, my husband said he wanted a divorce. I cried about it a lot, but all in all, I understand. He pointed out a lot of things like my desire to be around people and his desire to be alone as one of the many reasons to divorce. I have not worked in many years and have been the primary caregiver for all of our children in the meantime. I've told him I don't want a divorce for the next 4 years until our youngest is in kindergarten so I can support myself and my kids on my own. I agreed I would do 50-50 custody per his request, so he doesn't feel like I have the upper hand with our kids. We both know that an 80-20 custody arrangement is what we're going to be doing because of the nature of his work. I don't want alimony or child support. If he wins, my kids win, and we have to know each other for the rest of our lives. I'd rather leave amicably and let our kids have both parents at their birthday parties without tension. The houses we own are in my name, same as his. He has offered a portion of his business in the divorce to help me feel secure in the decision to divorce. I refused. He asked if I could continue to help with the business until he gets the hang of things. I told him, of course, but I've told him I don't want to divorce or be legally separated until I can support myself. Since then, he seems more miserable than before. I respect and love him deeply, and I've told him to go find himself and stay out if he wants to. During that time, we'll be living as roommates slash co-parents, but I don't want to lose my health insurance and have to worry about working while returning to school. He's agreed to what I've suggested, but I can't help but feel like he's become more resentful and irritable. Since then, he's spent less time with me and the kids and hasn't been up for family activities. I don't know if I'm being the jerk for trying to put my needs first. For reference, the trip just highlighted our differences and lack of communication. The rest of the trip was miserable for everyone. I tried to work things out, but the damage was done. Clearly, it was not about the trip, but about us in general. I interviewed for a job that would give me some freedom. I could afford a small apartment for myself and the kids with alimony and child support. We could get by. It would require the kids to be in childcare in the same building as me for 8-hour days. Our oldest would toggle between going to work with either of us. He didn't like the idea because our youngest is under 2 and suggested I move towards that transition next year. He doesn't like anyone watching our kids. It's either him or myself. We've only been away from our kids 3 times in our 10 years. 2 short appointments and 1 overnight for the recent baby. He said he's for this arrangement because our kids would be with me instead of strangers, but he seems like he's so miserable. I don't know which way is up sometimes. We're cordial, and I know the relationship would be the ultimate test. I have no business seeing anyone as I've been with him since I became an adult. I need to find myself first. It'll be me keeping my cool once he finds someone new, which will happen, I'm sure. He suggested I work part-time on the weekends to supplement school costs and live in the house as a divorced or legally separated couple. I don't want to split assets or lose my small amount of benefits in the meantime. I told him we could be separated, not legally until it's time. I just don't know how I'm supposed to watch our kids and go to school full-time while making minimum wage and trying to rebuild. I don't want the rug pulled from under me. He said half the business in my name, but that means less money because of payroll costs and taxes. We would have to file taxes separately if we divorced or separated. He said 1 house for me, 1 for him. I couldn't afford our rental mortgage on minimum wage. The only way to do this is if our kids are in childcare. He doesn't want that, so this is the solution for now. He says he's happy with it, but it doesn't feel that way. I told him to find a lawyer to talk to. He hasn't. We're stuck in limbo. To add to the background, the relationship started rocky with me going out drinking and partying when we met. I would hang out with like-minded friends and was the life of the party. I was 20 years old with nothing to lose. Fake ID, fake friends. He had a kid and a business to look after. I had to grow up quickly. This was my first real relationship outside of high school. A few things I did in the first year of the relationship that he worked past but kept coming up. 1. Deleted a text from a random man that messaged once saying that we met at the bar a few weeks prior to me meeting my husband, and he wanted to know if I was free. Solution: change my number. 2. Opened 2 Snapchats from 2 different guys I was talking to as a friend, would flirt with, but nothing more. This was while we were both dating, not official. Solution: I deleted my Snapchat, eventually all social media. 3. Deleted my search history because my friend sent me a Vine that had adult content. I didn't know how to just delete the link. Didn't want my husband's kid, 3-year-old at the time, to see it by accident, so I wiped everything out. Solution: new friends. 4. Oversharing with my sister about our relationship woes early on because I felt like I had to gain footing with issues. Solution: I got a therapist. 5. I had seen that I had a Molly in an old wallet that I forgot about while I was at home with his kid. I didn't think to flush it, which would have obviously made the most sense now that I think of it. I put it in my purse and told my husband about it and threw it away in the mall trash. My frontal lobe was not fully developed, obviously. This is a 10-year relationship. He's done his fair share of messed up things, don't get me wrong. My husband is mostly rational but is not very understanding. When people mess up, they are forgiven but reminded of their transgressions constantly. His way of putting it was, I gave you all my trust, and you broke it off piece by piece until there was none left. This all happened within our first year of dating, yet he brings it up whenever he's upset about anything. I've grown up since then in the 10 years. I am a fully dedicated mother and housewife and help him with every aspiration he brings to the table. We work so well as a team when emotions aren't involved. During the trip, he said I was self-centered and showed myself while I was nursing our baby that I could have covered up more in the 85-degree heat while nursing him poolside. He said I didn't look like a mom with the swimsuit I chose, high-waisted 2-piece, even though the rest of my wardrobe he agreed was conservative. He spent the rest of the trip angry at me and made the rest of the stay very awkward for everyone. He said we have too much history, that he can't trust me. The trip just brought everything forward for him, hence the divorce request. I am asking for time because he doesn't trust anyone to watch our kids. We have never had a sitter outside of 3 appointments that we couldn't miss in our 10 years. My sister watched them. He dislikes her because she's not a fan of his. He knows because he would go through my texts. But she's the beneficiary/person who would look after our kids if we both passed away. We have a baby that is with me 24/7, a preschooler that will be entering elementary school next year, in addition to the teen. I found a job that would bring both little kids to school with me, with an 8-hour day/5-day-a-week commitment. I interviewed and was offered the job, but he said it would be too much on the kids and highly advised I turn it down, as he said it was my decision ultimately. He said I should get a part-time job and finish my degree, so I can be financially stable, because that's been my worry. I won't put him on child support or alimony because that technically puts a lien on you when it comes to borrowing money. We've purchased 2 properties together, and he has plans to buy more. The child support and alimony would hinder him in his future endeavors. He said he doesn't care, but I don't want to have issues in the future with feelings of resentment. Divorce/legal separation would mean I lose my health insurance and life insurance policy, because it's based on his income with me as a stay-at-home mom. He's agreed I put the work in to help him all these years, that the least he can do is help me get on my feet, but he seems so miserable now. He mentioned having time on his hands cause he's 35 and can start a new relationship. I don't plan on dating seriously until my kids are out of the house cause I can't trust another man sleeping in the same house as my kids. He was mad when I said I wouldn't deny myself pleasure and called me a liar, saying I was talking up being a nun and changed my tune. I have no desires to find someone new. I was being petty because he was so excited about finding a new woman. Other than that, I've been supportive and okay with the whole process mostly. I've cried a lot, but I never begged him to stay. I asked if he would consider counseling. He said no, considering we tried twice in our relationship, and I made breakthroughs. He was more closed off. Right now we're both wearing our rings and calling each other babe, and loving life as if nothing happened. He doesn't want to bring it up to the kids at all. I'm running on his time, though I know our teenager knows something's up. I've suggested we live in our family home and rent an apartment, go try bird nesting. He suggested living in the spare bedroom until we divorce officially. I can't help but feel like he's going to resent me after all this, when I'm trying to just get on my feet so he won't in the long run. So I came on here a while back to seek advice. I was wondering if I was wrong for asking my husband to put off the divorce he requested for a few years while I finished up schooling. Consensus was, I was the jerk. Since then, I have worked on myself and decided to ask for the alimony, child support I deserve. I've been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years and helped build his small business along the way. Originally, my husband was miserable to be around and wasn't himself when I told him I needed some time before the divorce to be on my feet. I came on here and everyone told me the poor guy felt trapped because of my request. So I let that stuff go and said we'll get the full divorce 4-month process in our state and move on with our lives. I have the paperwork ready. Told him to find a lawyer. He found one that wasn't licensed. Through simple channels, I was able to find out that the person claiming to be a lawyer online was not licensed through the state. I run the operations for his small business, so I'm savvy in these things. My husband is incredible in his field. Not exaggerating. He's one of the best, if not the best in his profession where we live. But the business side of things has been all me since we've met. Since I helped him dodge a bullet, he hasn't put much effort in the divorce process. Reflecting on this story, it's clear that the complexities of relationships and marriage are multifaceted, especially when children are involved. The narrator is caught in a difficult situation, balancing her own needs with the needs of her children and her soon-to-be ex-husband. Her deep commitment to her family and willingness to work towards a solution that benefits everyone, despite the emotional pain, is a testament to her strength. However, the strain is evident, and the uncertain future seems to loom large over all of them. It's a poignant reminder that the dissolution of a relationship is rarely straightforward and often filled with conflicting emotions. As a husband who chose to separate from his wife, I never expected to be hit with news as devastating as this. My wife, from whom I'm currently separated, was diagnosed with cancer and chose not to tell me. My heart ached and confusion swirled in my mind. Was I wrong for feeling upset about being kept in the dark? Here's how it all went down. Though my parents were wealthy and diligent, they largely neglected me. By the time I was 10, they decided a nanny was unnecessary, which left me without any parental figures. They devoted all their time and energy to work, leaving no time for me. When I met my wife, she was full of life, intelligent, and caring. We spent countless hours discussing everything. However, over time, things changed. She would come home from work, immediately crawl into bed, and spend the next 3 hours on TikTok. Interaction from her became rare. She hardly participated in chores, often paying someone to cover her share. Always claiming exhaustion, she would either stay up all night or sleep for 18 hours. It was painful to see her glued to her phone or computer instead of interacting with me. I requested a separation. Despite her pleas and my love for her, being with her felt too much like my neglectful childhood. We both knew that separations often lead to divorce. Recently, an old friend of my wife scolded me, revealing that my wife had cancer. I was completely unaware. I confronted my wife about why she hid her illness. She explained she didn't want to manipulate me into staying out of guilt, given our impending divorce. She had discovered her condition 3 weeks after our separation. I expressed my upset at her for not informing me. She seemed physically weaker, and her hair had thinned, but she attributed it to stress. I'm upset she didn't tell me. Am I in the wrong? Her physical changes only became apparent recently. For 3 years prior, she would stay in bed all day, alternating between sleeping through the weekend and staying awake during weekdays. I handled all the household chores, but she hired a housekeeper out of guilt. I also did all the cooking. She showed a profound disinterest in me. She didn't want to do anything with me. She would just lie in bed watching TikToks with daily screen time reaching 16 hours. I made doctor's appointments and tried to get her active, but she refused to consider seeing a doctor. After years of her insisting nothing was wrong, doctors labeling her as lazy, blood tests showing no issues, and her continued inactivity, I was exhausted. Had I known her body was deteriorating, I wouldn't have left. I wish she had attended the appointments I arranged before I requested a separation. I intend to support her in any way I can. I spoke to my wife. I called her and asked if she was open to talking. She agreed. When I arrived at her place, it was evident that no one had visited in at least a few weeks. My wife is a neat person, so there was no mess, but it was clear that she was living alone. I apologized for everything. I questioned why she didn't disclose her cancer diagnosis. She explained that she felt guilty, fearing that we would exert a lot of effort, only to conclude she was simply lazy, leading to resentment. She also believed that after our separation, she could attend a few doctor's appointments to prove she was physically fine. Meanwhile, working on overcoming her perceived laziness at home, she discovered she had cancer. She expressed deep remorse for not attending any appointments I had arranged. She felt guilty knowing that if I knew about her condition, I would return, and she did not want me to sacrifice for her after years of dismissing my concerns. She broke down, expressing that she truly felt as if she was merely being lazy and fatigued, much like before. I asked her to elaborate. She mentioned a few instances during her school years when she experienced intense periods of fatigue and inability to get out of bed. Her parents took her to a doctor, but they found nothing wrong. Her condition wasn't caused by anxiety, and she didn't feel depressed. She was just incredibly tired. Her parents and doctor dismissed it as laziness. I have a strong dislike for her parents. I told her it didn't sound like laziness, but a real medical issue. I assured her that I would help her figure it out, but to me, it sounded like an autoimmune disease or a flare-up. I assured her that I always believe in her. I believed her when she insisted she was just being lazy after 3 years of trying to get her to see a doctor, and I would have believed her if she had been honest with me about her childhood experiences. She continued to sob. I comforted her. After she calmed down, I checked her fridge for food. There were only a few items in there, including some frozen food I had previously dropped off. I offered to go grocery shopping or bring her over to my apartment for a meal. She chose to come to my apartment. I gathered a few items for her and took a basket of dirty laundry to wash. At my apartment, I ran a bath for her and cooked dinner. She didn't have any clean sleepwear, so she borrowed mine. We ate dinner together. She kept expressing her gratitude, and I assured her she didn't need to thank me. She's my wife, and it's only natural that I take care of her through her cancer journey. She brought up how she had relied on me to do all the chores previously, and she didn't want me to go through that again. I told her that she was ill and exhausted, and I was willing to handle everything again if she stayed honest with me about her feelings, and didn't dismiss her condition as laziness. We ended up cuddling, and she fell asleep rather quickly. She's been alternating between sleep and wakefulness over the past 2 days. She's been a bit clingy to me, and she looks a lot more comfortable. She's likely going to stay at my apartment, so we'll have to figure out how to break her lease. I have no intentions of divorcing or leaving her. She needs a lot of support. This story paints a poignant picture of human relationships and the complexities they entail. It is a reminder that communication is paramount in any relationship and that sometimes we may not fully understand what our loved ones are going through. The husband's feelings of betrayal are justified, but so is the wife's fear of being a burden. The story beautifully portrays their reconciliation and commitment to face the hardship together, shedding light on the power of love and understanding. I will try my luck here and hope this is a more civil subreddit. I apologize for the length of this post. My ex-husband, 40-year-old male, and I, 41-year-old female, separated 4 years ago. It was I who asked for the divorce, but we had numerous problems and we both knew that we were not compatible anymore. My biggest issue was that he was never there for me, nor was he understanding. It was after our daughter was born, 6-year-old female. He never helped me, and he just continued his life like it was before she was born. Nothing was the same after our daughter was born, of course, and I couldn't reach out to him. We fought all the time. I was suffering from depression and weight gain, and I felt horrible about myself. I probably wasn't easy to handle either. The divorce was amicable and he proved all my worries about him neglecting our daughter wrong, since it felt like he was unwilling to adapt to his new role as a father after her birth. But no, I was happy that he proved me wrong, and that he turned out to be a great father to our daughter. But at the same time, I wished he would have stepped up earlier when we were still together. He started seeing his fiancée, 31-year-old female, about 3 years ago. This hurt me because I still loved him very much, but I wanted to be happy for him for our daughter's sake, so I pretended I was just that. After a while, he introduced her to my daughter, and she seemed to be nice, and she was very good with my daughter and loved her, and my daughter seemed to really like her. So I was at least relieved that she is a good person who cared about my child. I never told anyone about my feelings and regrets, but kept it to myself because this situation is my own doing, and now I take the responsibility. About 6 months ago, when my ex was dropping off our daughter, he told me that he was engaged. I felt like I wanted to pass out, and I don't even remember how I managed to pull myself together and put on a smile to congratulate him. I cried for weeks afterwards. I didn't even know what I was expecting, but I was devastated. A few weeks after, I met my ex-husband's sister at the grocery store, and she asked me how I felt. I felt my tears welling up, and all she needed to do was to hold my hand for me to burst out crying. She asked me if I still loved him, and I tried to act happy for his sake, but she probably wasn't convinced. My ex seemed a bit changed afterwards, and at first I thought I was imagining things. While we've always been cordial towards each other, he was more chatty now, and he made excuses to stay longer during drop-offs, and even a couple of times I thought that he made sure to arrive around dinner to ask if he could stay because he was hungry. Then a few weeks later, the sister showed up at my place with my ex-husband, and she told us that we needed to talk. He said that he never knew that I still loved him, and that he still loved me too. If he knew, he would never have tried to move on. Later, I heard that he ended his engagement. His mother called me, even before I knew he had ended his engagement, to tell me that I was the jerk for ruining his happiness, that I broke his heart, and now I waited for him to find a good woman who could give him a good future, a better future with more children to just pick him up again. Also, his fiancée sent me many messages calling me an old witch who is using my daughter and his love for her to take him, that I'm pathetic and desperate, and he only thinks about our daughter. I feel bad because his ex has been nothing but good towards me, and she lost 3 years on him. Am I the jerk? I didn't answer the ex-fiancé, and I haven't spoken to him yet. He is asking me out on dates and is talking about counseling so we don't make the same mistakes again. I feel so guilty. My ex-husband has been spending more time with me, often without our daughter's knowledge because we do not want to confuse her in case this does not work out. I love him very much, so I do not understand why I am so terrified. We have also had a couple of therapy sessions together to discuss our issues. We will continue with therapy. My husband's sister has been the one taking care of our daughter when we are seeing each other. We go on walks, have dinner dates, and attend therapy sessions. On Christmas, he spent the day with us. There were some problems because he was supposed to celebrate with his parents, our daughter, his sister, and her family. My mother-in-law refused to include me, so he ended up asking me if we could celebrate at my place. My sister-in-law chose to celebrate with us instead. I had my sister and her family too. Our daughter was very happy about this. Since then, he has been staying for dinner a few days a week with our daughter. We are concerned about how to proceed. I'm afraid to upset my daughter. Our plan is for him to move in with us, or that we move to a new house together as a fresh start. The only problem is that my husband's ex refuses to leave his apartment, and we are going to need to sell both properties to be able to afford a larger house for a new start. What do you think? Are we hurting our daughter? Is there anyone here who is or has been in the same situation and can tell me what children think about their parents being together after growing up with them apart? Are we taking things slow enough? This story illustrates the complexities of human emotions and relationships. It highlights how feelings can persist even after a divorce, and how change and reconciliation can occur. However, it's essential to consider all parties involved, especially the child. The couple's renewed relationship is causing waves in their social circle, and it's crucial to handle the situation with sensitivity and care. As the couple navigates this second chance, they should keep their child's best interests at the forefront and ensure open communication with all parties involved. If you enjoyed today's stories, check out the other videos on your screen now. Submit your own stories at you'rethejerk.com. Subscribe now or you're definitely the jerk.